Hi, Romans here and welcome to another installment in my Worst to Best series, where I take a discography of a certain artist, band, or a musician, and I rank all of their studio albums going from worst to best, based on my own personal opinion. I also review all of the albums from a viewpoint of a musician, as I'm a singer, songwriter, and a bass player, and something like 2.5 years ago we released our debut album called Persons in Life. What makes it unique is that it's a heavy prog rock without guitars. Instead, you have drums, bass, saxophone, and keyboards. You can check out all of our music videos on my YouTube channel. And in the description of all these videos you will find all the information about where is the record available. It's available on all digital platforms like Spotify, Tidal, Deezer, iTunes, Amazon, Bandcamp, but also in this digipack version of a CD with a very beautifully illustrated 20 pages long booklet. So, in case you want one, all you need to do is contact me via an email or on Facebook or on Instagram, or you can get one through Bandcamp as well. And today I'm going to rank all of the studio albums from Savatage.
Music review. Music review.
Okay, so welcome once again, guys. This is the first video of the year and it's my most watched series, worst to best. I really love doing these and I was really looking forward to doing Savatage. Actually, last year, you know, when you have Spotify Wrapped at the end of the year, Savatage came at the top for me. And they were the most listened to artist of 2020 for me. This is kind of a strange because, you know, I listen to like 300 to 400 records per year. So I listen to a lot of stuff. And, you know, usually the bands with the biggest discographies end up at the top because they have the most songs I stream. And interestingly, Savatage don't have all of their albums on Spotify. Handful of Rain is their one record that you can't find there. So I had to listen to it elsewhere. But anyway, interesting statistics. As you can see, there's also Kiss, which worst to best I did like a couple weeks ago. Okay, so when it comes to Savatage, this is in my opinion one of those truly unique and original, sort of a one-of-a-kind bands. And what made them so unique, in case you've never heard about them or you just don't know their music, they were basically playing a very specific type of like progressive technical thrash metal. Even calling them thrash metal is a bit like an understatement because, you know, when I say thrash metal, you'll think of Metallica or Slayer or Megadeth, and Savatage were very different. Once again, they had a very unique take on this genre. I even saw some people calling them power metal, but no. Like, I mean, if you know what power metal is, then this is definitely not a power metal band. Same with calling them death metal. If there's not death metal growls, then by definition you can't really call a band death metal. But they were playing their own very unique version of that progressive technical thrash metal, but around the fifth album they started combining it with symphonic, orchestral, and sort of a musical elements, and almost going into that like rock opera territory. And, you know, like thrash metal and musical, that's a combination that there really wasn't anything like that before or since. I'm very happy to say that I kind of grew up listening to Savatage. By that I mean that I was listening to them already at high school. Records like Hell of a Mountain King, Handful of Rain, Edge of Thorns, Gotta Belay. And when I had my first band, Bad Pulse, in 2009 and 2010, we even played one song from Savatage, the conversation piece from The Edge of Thorns. So very proud of that. With this being said, Savatage are a huge influence on me as a songwriter. I drew a lot of inspiration from them. Okay, so let's go through the list. I'm gonna rank just their studio albums, so no compilations, no live disc, no whatever. So all of the 11 studio albums, including one EP. Let's start. At number 11, I have arguably their weakest album, Fight for the Rock from 1986. Probably majority of their fans would agree with this position, even the band themselves. This was their third studio album actually fourth studio release. And this was a kind of a strange album, considering how consistent they were on all of their albums. This was the only different record, and basically it's like a pop rock album, maybe with a little bigger emphasis on pop. But before talking about this album, let's talk about the background of it a little bit, because the band was founded by two brothers, John Oliva and Chris Oliva. Chris was the guitar player and John was the frontman, the singer, and later on the keyboard player. And at that time he was already writing some pop songs that he was intending for other artists on the Atlantic label, Atlantic Records, and one of those artists was John White. But when he presented these songs to the label, they were like, nah, release them with Savatage. And of course, it wasn't a very good move, but they were kind of forced to do that. And as a result, this was the record that kind of destroyed everything they were building up with their previous releases. And even critics banned the record. The band themselves, they are very critical of it. I don't even think they ever played any songs from it. Okay, so let's look at it. The title track, Fight for the Rock, has a killer riff. And in my opinion, this is actually a very, very good hard rock song. Crying for Love is pretty good as well. And we gotta talk about Red Light Paradise. Honestly, this song is one of their best. Red Light Paradise, absolutely love this track. It's fantastic. Other than that, we have a couple of covers which sound very out of place. They are so cheesy and so sweet that just doesn't really make sense for Savatage to release something like that. And the rest of the tracks are mostly forgettable. They even reworked the most commercial song from their first album, the track Out on the Streets. I'm not a big fan of that track. I don't like it on the first album, I don't like it here, so a pretty skippable release, but the three songs I mentioned are definitely worth checking out. Number 10, Dead Winter Dead from 1995. This was their 9th studio album and the 3rd album with Zachary Stevens behind the mic, their second singer. And this was the first album where they went fully symphonic, and they would kind of remain with that style, or remain doing that for the rest of their discography. There's an epic beginning, Sarajevo. Also, John Oliva returns as a singer in 2 tracks. One of them is I Am, which is pretty good and has some epic moments. The other one is, in my opinion, relatively forgettable. Starlight is also good.
Nothing less, saying that we don't care. Understand is the lie, and you have to be there.
One Child is a typical musical like Savatage. They even shot a music video for it.
On the other side, tell me the pilots died and we're no longer alone. Take your answers and your promises, believe me, I don't care. I have held on to your words until I found them on the air.
Christmas Eve is also a cool instrumental, and this became a surprise hit for Savatage. This kind of combines that traditional Christmas carol that I mostly know from Home Alone. the success of this track kind of led to the creation of Trans-Siberian Orchestra, one of the biggest metal projects in the world. Not What You See has some cool vocals. The rest of the album is kind of forgettable, honestly. Like, I mean, everything that comes after in my list is so much better. And I know that generally fans are relatively fond of this album. I don't know why. This album just never really clicked with me. I don't really know why, but it never really worked for me. So this is one of the albums I'm not very likely to get back to. My number 9 is probably going to be a little controversial. I have Sirens, their debut album from 1983. And the follow-up EP from 1984, Dungeons Are Calling. This makes for around an hour of music, and even though these are two separate releases, all of this music was recorded at the same time. They just decided to release it separately. And this is a very raw Savatage at the beginning of their career. You can already hear some moments of brilliance and the birth of their unique style, but there are also many forgettable ones in my opinion as well, and their songwriting just wasn't really that polished and that great. So Sirens, the title track, is obviously iconic. Love this track, they kept playing it ever since. And there's this part where he screams. I really love his kind of a raven-like screams. And he reused this in the track Hell of a Mountain King. But I think it's a little better there. Holocaust is also pretty heavy. I Believe is basically a rock anthem. On the Run has some moments. Then the title track from the EP The Dungeons Are Calling is interesting. By the Grace of the Witch is amazing track. But the rest is anywhere from average to pretty forgettable, and some of the tracks like Twisted Little Sister or The Whip, they're like total fillers, really bad songs. So generally not bad albums, still probably not something I return to that often. Number 8, Handful of Rain from 1994. My number 8 and 9 were actually changing quite a lot over the last few weeks, but at the end of the day, Handful of Rain is a little closer to my heart because I was listening to it at high school, so there's more of a sentimental value, I guess. Anyway, this was the first album after a tragic death of Chris Oliva, one of the founding members, and I mean, this is just such a loss for a musical world. I'm not even gonna say like for metal world, but for musical world. His guitar playing, he's one of my favorite guitar players, and I mean, it's really horrible. And also interestingly, John Oliva, his brother, who was the original frontman and the singer, he left the group for the previous album to focus on other stuff. And he came back and he did all of the writing with their producer, Paul O'Neill. So this is a very dark and heavy album. I think it's also reflecting the events that were preceding it, which is kind of logical. And for example, the opening track, Toning Cobras, is definitely one of their heaviest moments. Like that chromatic riff and that really aggressive delivery from Zach. It's just such a heavy song. Nothing's Going On is also quite a banger, and this is one of the 2 tracks that were co-written by Chris Oliva, probably the only stuff they kind of managed to write before his death.
You know there's nothing going on. Nothing's going on. Nothing's going on. Nothing's going on.
Handful of Rain, the title track, is fantastic. I love the build-up. It starts on an acoustic guitar, but also, you know, in rock music, usually acoustic guitars use steel strings, which is that typical acoustic rock sound. But here they use nylon strings, and it gives it a very different vibe. I personally use nylon strings all the time, but it's not very common in rock and metal. And especially that build-up, how it rocks up, it's just so heavy. I love it.
Your women in your whiskey with your futures in the past.
Chance is an interesting mini epic on the album. I think it's around 8 minutes long, but it's kind of a mixed bag, honestly. There are some moments I really like, some moments not so much, but that really big layered vocal section towards the end is absolutely impressive.
Staring at his inhibitions all the time, believing that it now came down to nothing but this time.
Watching You Fall has also that cool musical vibe.
I can see it all, and I've been out here watching you fall. Yeah.
And Alone You Breathe is an emotional closer of the album. It's a ballad, and I like that we get certain references to the closing ballad of the Streets record, Believe, and at a certain point the melody just gets there and we basically get the chorus from that track.
I am the way, I am the light, I am the dark inside the night. I hear your hopes, I feel your dreams, and in the dark I hear your screams. I am the way, I am the light, I am the dark inside the night. I hear your hopes, I feel your dreams, and in the dark I hear your screams.
Yeah, this is a good album. I think it's a good album, and Zachary Stevens as a singer, he's just like, he was absolutely on fire on those 4 albums he did with Savatage, like such a huge voice. Number 7, Streets, a rock opera from 1991. So this is an interesting album. Many fans see this as Savatage at their peak. Some fans don't really care about it and think it's overproduced and sort of over-ambitious. I'm somewhere in between. I'm gonna get back to that in a couple minutes. I think that with this album, this is a concept album. We basically have a story. Originally, they wanted to do a double album, but the label wasn't on board with this idea, so many of the songs that they were intending for the second disc made it to their later records. And basically, the whole album is a story. They also re-released the record, I think, a couple of years ago with additional story tracks that complete the story, which I think makes for an interesting one-time listen, but I wouldn't really prefer that version. But anyway, you know, if you look at Gotta Belay and Edge of Thorns, the 2 albums that are surrounding this one, they seem like very logical continuation of Savatage. Gotta Belay, Edge of Thorns is basically a carbon copy of Gotta Belay. But Streets, in between, this was them taking a very different approach. The album opens up with the track Streets, and I just absolutely love the atmosphere it puts you in. It has such a strong atmosphere, one of the most atmospheric tracks I've ever heard. I'm drawing so much inspiration from this.
These streets glitter in the dark. Don't sleep when eyes sunken stars dream deep in the arms where you are safe. These streets.
And I think it would have been amazing if the whole album kind of went in that direction, because basically this atmosphere is never repeated. We never really get back to that feeling anymore, like ever on a record, which is kind of a shame. I mean, story-wise it makes sense, but musically it's just, you know, whatever this song kind of builds, it's just, you know, the rest of the album doesn't build up on that, I think. Jesus Saves has an amazing riff, and I think that this is the perfect example of that brilliant combination of thrash metal and a musical.
Still the critics they would rave. What? Jesus saves. Jesus saves. Yes it does.
We have some musical pieces, like for example You're Alive,
Throw back your hair and let the wind rush by. And you're alive.
or a piano led A Little Too Far.
Gotta get back, gotta get back, gotta get back. When everything you touch turns gold, can weigh you down, can make you old.
Even some heavier pieces like Can You Hear Me Now?
Can you hear me now? Or are there just too many doors between then and now? For me to ever reach on.
Ghost in the Ruins is really great.
I'm running the streets, seeing burning like gasoline. I'm taking you empty. East side, west side, playing for keeps.
Agony and Ecstasy is probably the heaviest one on the album.
Just keep on coming back to buy another nickel. 12 o'clock, time to greet agony and ecstasy.
And I also have to mention the phenomenal riff of Strange Reality. If I Go Away is one of my all-time favorite ballads, and especially that climax of the track is just so powerful, so emotional. There were times when it actually made me cry.
Someday I'll take a chance. You find them where you can.
And the album ends with the duo of very strong ballads, Somewhere in Time and I Believe, which are really huge. Because of the nature of this video, I couldn't mention all of the tracks on the album, but there are 16 songs. Sometimes the track list shows 12 tracks because there are certain pairs of songs that are kind of put together. You know, if I look at every song on this album, there is no weak track, there is no bad track, but there is just something about this record that, I don't know, maybe I would use a different track list. Maybe some of these songs I would use on different records. Maybe some other songs I would put here. Maybe make it more cohesive, maybe more unified. I don't know. It's just, this is that record that I get back to every couple of years. And I listen to it like 4 or 5 times and I'm okay for another couple of years. So it kind of wears out faster than some of the other records I'm gonna mention. At number 6, I have the final 11th studio album, Poets and Madmen from 2001. This was one of the albums I kind of got to a little later on. And this was the album that saw the return of John Oliva behind the mic after 10 years. Basically since Streets, this was his first album where he was the full singer. And I think that this is a very underrated record, kind of an overlooked album. And like, for example, Stay With Me, the first track, is a perfect example of Savatage in the 21st century.
What good's a story whose end is unknown? Stay with me for the little night that's left to be. For a moment in a memory that time cannot defile.
Commissar is just so epic and heavy.
Do you hear, Commissar? The night is silent. Do you think, Commissar? It is defiance.
I Seek Power is super punchy.
I seek power. Where the power remains, yeah. I seek power.
Morphine Child is the musical opus here.
Nothing's ended if nothing starts. In your life, could you carry on? Could you never think about it till the time you start to doubt it? Then you close your eyes. Is it really gone? How untrue can you depend?
And very similar in its vibe is the track Surrender.
They are the us that is still yet to be, and so we carry on.
Awaken has that Savatage-like madness, craziness.
Chances are there to take. Now it is time to awaken, awaken, awaken.
And Back to Reason has it all. There are some musical parts, some emotional parts.
Time just goes on and on and on. Got to get back to a reason. Got to get back to a reason.
I think that this is truly an awesome album, and I think they could have continued with this. I mean, John Oliva's Pain is pretty much going in that style, so it's very similar, but I mean, maybe they had still quite a few records in them after this one. Who knows? Number 5, Power of the Night from 1985. This was their second studio album, third studio release, and this is just a huge improvement over the debut album in my opinion. This is already a fantastic album, I love it. The title track is epic and badass, and I especially love those Raven-like screams that he does. I haven't really heard any other single like that, and it's just so unique. I love his voice.
Power of the night. The call of the wire. Power of the night.
Unusual has beautifully dark and horror-like atmosphere.
She's unusual. So
Then we have a chanting headbanger, Warriors.
warrior, warrior, warriors of the world. Warrior, warrior, warriors of the world.
Necrophilia is another awesome track.
She's a deceiver, disbeliever, inconceiver.
Hard for Love is a textbook hard rock, and I love it.
Heart of the things you do to me. I am hard for your love tonight. I'm hard for your love, and I am hard for your love.
Fountain of Youth is great, and I especially love that midsection. School Session is my kind of metal.
Yes, sir. Skull session. Skull session.
And the album surprisingly ends with a very gentle ballad, In the Dream, which may even sound a little out of place, but I think it shows a little variety.
In the dream.
Number 4, The Wake of Magellan from 1997, their 10th studio album and the final one with Zachary Stephen behind the mic. And in my opinion, this is where they got that musical symphonic metal right. This is a record I started liking while preparing for this video. I listened to it a couple of years ago. I was like, it's okay. But when I returned to it for when I was revisiting their whole discography for this video, I was just blown away by how great this album is. So Welcome sets the mood for this epic ride.
Before the ghosts arrive, it's welcome to the show. Minstrels, kings, explorers, fantasies, on order, ghosts and dreams, awakened stories, long forsaken. The minstrel
Turns to Me has at this point signature dual vocals by Zach.
Are we wasting the time? You're wasting, but when you're wasting, you don't care.
And that build up, man, that build up is just amazing.
And in the dark, there's no one to pray for me now.
Another Way has John back on vocals, and this is another rock opera at its best.
And if there's not to be another way, you tell me why?
Complaint in the System is on the heavier side.
I will be your mentor, I'll be your advisor. I'll do what I do and you will look away. Forgetting what you see has always been much wiser, but someone in the back is missing what I say. Got a complaint in the system. Got a complaint in the system. Got a complaint in the system.
The title track, The Wake of Magellan, is really cinematic. And again, that vocal ending is just so impressive. Anymore is at this point a typical Savatage-like ballad.
To once more wish that you could close your eyes and just believe again. There's a God, does he remember when?
And the final opus, Hourglass, just has too many awesome moments to mention, so let's hear just one of them.
And all at once the heavens bled on fire. The anchor broke, the chains they flew away.
Okay, before I reveal my top 3 picks, if you like this video and if you like the videos I'm making, consider supporting me by purchasing my debut album Pursuits in Life, because I include audio samples in my videos and reviews and thus I make them the most informative and entertaining to watch. I usually run a risk of getting a copyright claim, meaning that I won't be able to monetize my videos, I won't be able to earn any money from it. Whatever money I earn goes to the original author, which I have no problems with, but you know, these videos are just so time consuming, so basically the best and the only way how you can support me is by buying my debut album. And if you like original bands such as Savatage, you're gonna love my record because I think it's pretty innovative and original as well. Okay, so number 3, Hell of a Mountain King from 1987. I absolutely adore this album. The opener 24 Hours Ago is just absolutely amazing track. I love it. Beyond the Doors of the Dark has a dark intro and then it just blows you away. Legions is great. Strange Ways is a bit more commercial and melodic, and I think that the addition of Ray Gillan from Badlands on vocals is just a cherry on top.
She flies straight.
Okay, the title track, Hell of a Mountain King, not only one of the best songs in the prog metal genre, one of the best songs I've ever heard. I never get tired of this track. I love it so much. And this is really like a good example of that unique sound and style that they had. The price you pay continues the greatness, and I love the verses. Then almost punk rock song, White Witch. And Devastation ends the record in the same way it started. This album is a true masterpiece. So we have 2 more masterpieces left. Okay, my number 2 was for a very, very long time my number 1, and it was kind of changed only when I was preparing for this video. So at number 2 I have Edge of Thorns from 1993, and this was, in my opinion, their peak. Also commercially it started looking really great for this band. MTV was supporting them a lot, they had a couple of music videos, and it just makes me wonder if their fame would continue to rise if Chris Oliva didn't die in that car accident. It would have been interesting to see what would happen. This is also the first album where John Oliva kind of stepped away from the frontman position and Zachary Stevens entered the band. There's a huge difference between both singers. Zachary Stevens has more accessible, more commercial, more pleasant voice, while John Oliva is, in my opinion, a little more unique and original, even though less technical. So the title track, Edge of Thorns, is great, very catchy, fantastic track.
I have seen you on the edge of dawn, felt you here before you were born, balanced your dreams upon the edge of thorn.
He Carves His Stone is such a prog brilliance. I love this track, especially the ending where he basically just screams his voice out. This is one of the tracks I used to practice a lot when I was growing up. Lights Out is groovy as hell.
Flirting with the devil, shooting gamble with your soul. Lights out, never on the level, and you know you're gonna roll, you're gonna roll.
Scraggy's Tomb is fantastic.
Crawling to his bottom, oh, and let us watch him drown in Scraggy's tomb.
Then the short instrumental Labyrinth really showcases Chris's talent for melodic and emotional playing apart from his usual shredding. Follow Me is a masterpiece in itself. This song is kind of short, I think it's around 4 or 5 minutes long, but there are so many great melodic moments, especially that build up, but I absolutely adore this track. I mean, this is songwriting at its best.
Won't you follow me? Won't you follow me?
Exit music is a beautiful piano interlude. Degrees of Sanity has that thrash metal smell.
Degrees of sanity, all alone, lost unknown, and whispered in your sighs.
Conversation Piece, that riff is really awesome. Then there's a surprisingly catchy and commercial All I Bleed, the track that's so kind of obvious melodically that it may even feel a little out of place here, but it's still a nice track.
She knows, as she reads her letter, that things were bound to stray. Winds blow.
Damien is a groovy metal song and the guitar work is just moi.
Damien, is your heart harder? What's inside your head? Is the dark
Miles Away is an optimistic rock song.
on and gunning? I'll be running, always just before the day. In the distance, day is dawning, but I'm already miles away, miles away.
And the album ends with the track Sleep, which is an acoustic, almost country-like song.
And all I seek, a final chance to speak, but I would let the whole thing keep if I could just sleep.
So there's variety, there's brilliant songwriting, there's absolutely fantastic singing from Zach. I love this record. I mean, I just can't say that enough. I love this record. Okay, so if you are a Savatage fan, you know which record is left, and at number 1 I have Gotta Belay from 1989. And Edge of Thorns, as I've mentioned already, seems like a logical continuation, almost to the point of being a carbon copy of the Gotta Belay. But, you know, I don't mean that as a complaint. The Gotta Belay opens up with a track of Rage and War, which is exactly that dark, crazy prog metal that I love about Savatage. I remember when I was listening to them in high school, I was like, why can't every song on the album be like Of Rage and War? But of course, we wouldn't have variety then. Also, there's the first time they tried combining their thrash metal with musical, and that's the title track Gotta Belay.
Let the world beneath its feet. It's a gutter ballet, just among us.
Temptation Revelation is a short instrumental and it's just so beautiful. When the Crowds Are Gone. This is one of the best power ballads ever. I love it. I love how raw, how heavy, how emotional it is. And especially that second part, which is almost unsingable, especially in that John Oliva style. It's just, it's so good. It's so good.
When the crowds are gone and I'm all alone, playing a saddest song, now that the lights are gone.
Then we have acoustic, surprising instrumental Silk and Steel. She's in Love is so catchy, and you gotta appreciate John Oliva as a singer. I mean, back in the day, he was amazing.
Listen to the new one, tastes so good. Now she's in love. I know
Hounds is serious, dark, and man, that atmosphere. The Unholy combines melodic and heavy. Mentally Yours is an interesting track. It starts with the piano, it's very catchy, almost poppy.
Now we gaze at its cold nights through, reliving all of the things it would do.
And then it transforms into that groovy, crazy, proggy metal. Really love it.
Mentally yours, mentally yours, mentally yours, mentally yours.
Summer's Rain is so powerful, very strong melody, almost heartfelt.
And do I stand alone, out in the rain, hanging on somehow to an ancient vow, with nothing left to gain. And do you know?
And one of my favorite tracks from Savatage is at the end, closing the record, Thorzin Shuffle, just a huge banger.
The noisy shuffle. The noisy shuffle.
In case I haven't mentioned it, I think that this album is excellent. I love it. Okay, so there you have it. As you can see, I'm a huge fan of Savatage, and even though some of the records that ended up at the bottom I'm maybe less fond of, but I mean there are like 5 or 6 albums from Savatage that are just an absolute must. I love this band, so yeah, let me know in the comment section below whether you agreed or disagreed with me, and if you are a Savatage fan, definitely let me know what is your own list. As different as it may be, I mean that's the fun of these videos and of these rankings, how different lists can be from fan to fan, so definitely let me know your own one in the comment section below. You can follow me on Facebook or on Instagram. You can find the links to both in the description of this video below. Also, if you like this video, don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe. You can check out my own original music, my live performances, my other worst to best videos, and quite a lot of reviews as well. Thanks a lot for watching.